Welcome everybody. Welcome to this conversation that we have recorded for the Climate Adaptation Summit. A public-private conversation on physical climate risk. We have organized this as a Dutch Green Building Council. This is a non-profit organization that is working on a sustainable built environment, and we do that with over 350 partners in the Netherlands. Sustainable built environment, so that is working on net zero buildings, working on circular buildings, working on healthy buildings, but also working on climate adaptive buildings, because climate adaptation is knocking on our door, and it's no matter how hard we try to become Paris-proof with our buildings, we also have to act on the already changing climate and adapt our buildings to that situation. Real estate investors, real estate managers are also looking into this issue. I'm happy to have this conversation and to lead this conversation together with Martijn Vlasveld. Martijn, welcome. You are working at CBRE Global Investors. I think for you, you have a huge portfolio worldwide, but I think climate adaptation is an issue as well at CBRE, GI.
Yeah, certainly. I think we all started with the climate change adaptation, and then also starting with, of course, carbon and energy usage. Now we know that our buildings use a lot of energy, and that's of course also creating the climate change. So we started focusing on decreasing our energy usage and also decreasing our carbon emissions. And since now a couple of years, but especially last year, we've also been looking at the other kind of risks that go with climate change, like extreme heat, like we experienced a couple of years now, but also extreme cold, which you can have, flooding, yeah. Maybe more wind. So we're looking
I think all these issues will be part of the conversation. So I think in it's a good moment to introduce the participants of the conversation. We will have a conversation with the City Councillor of Sustainability and Energy Transition of the City of The Hague, because it's not just investors, it's also cities, of course, that are looking into this question of climate adaptation. After having a small introduction about what the city does on climate adaptation, we will talk about what investors do about it. As a Dutch Green Building Council, we have identified that there might be a need for a more common understanding on how to address the issue and how to assess buildings on the physical climate risk that is approaching us. And we have taken the initiative to develop a framework for climate adaptive buildings. Well, we'll dive into that a little bit later, but for now, I think it's interesting to hear about the City of The Hague, because we have done a little pilot in the City of The Hague to find out where investors are in the city exactly and what the challenges are that they see. I would like to invite, first of all, the City Councillor Liesbeth van Tongeren to the stage. So if you could please put up your camera. Thank you. Welcome. Yes, we are now broadcasting at the Climate Adaptation Summit, which is a worldwide summit where many people from different deltas, different countries, different cities come together to share knowledge about climate adaptation. And I think that if they know something about the Netherlands or something about the City of The Hague, and I think they know it's a city of justice and peace, but it's also a city at the sea. I think they know the city is below sea level. I think that's one of the things that will be interesting to hear something about from the city councillor. Welcome, and I would like to invite you to give us a little insight in how the issue is rolling in the city of The Hague.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today, because I think if you think COVID is a worldwide crisis, which it is, then it's only a small rehearsal for what is in store for us around climate change. Because as you mentioned, Jan, this is a hot year. It's the hottest year we've ever had. But on the other hand, it will be one of the coolest years of the coming 100 years. So as a deputy mayor of this city, I've been working very hard with different groups, both on preventing climate change and more greenhouse gases being emitted by the city. And today we're especially focusing on adapting ourselves to this change in our climate. As you mentioned, we're parts of The Hague are below sea level, and we're by the sea. We also have a harbour. And one of the things we've done together with the country government is that we've looked at how can we increase the ability of our sea defense, our dunes, to stop incoming water. So it's called the sand engine. We've put a whole heap of sand on the coast at some place, and then let the tides take it onto the beach. So that's one innovative way of defending yourself from the water. There are varying plans of building sluices in front of the harbour to also defend our harbour better. And I'm in a new build flat building close to the dunes. And what they've done here is just raise the level of the land by about 1 meter. So you have the old buildings, little steps go down to them, and then they have their pavement, and the new buildings are higher up. So those are varying ways the city tries to adapt to climate change. You mentioned specifically a place where, together with the people that live there in the flat buildings, we've looked at a park area. And park areas in the summer, they're often too dry, so the trees have a really rough time at the moment, and some of them die, which we want to avoid, because trees are one of the natural ways of keeping cities cooler. And in that place, we've put underground a big basin that can collect surplus water, so that when there's more heavy downpours, the water goes into the basin, and in dry times this water can be pumped up and used for the park area. But we've not only just limited ourselves to the park area, we've involved all the people that live around the park. And what do you notice? Is it very hot in your building in summer? We're trying to get, and that might be something that the real estate investors do as well, is the simplest thing is to make your roof white. It sounds incredibly easy, but not many people are doing it. We're having trouble finding buildings in The Hague that we can make white. So if anybody hears this meeting and has a big building with a flat roof in our heat island areas that together with us they want to make white, please contact me. And putting green roofs on it, sedum, small plants, helps a lot. We have a subsidy for that. And also solar panels, because if they stand on the roof, they create shade and they cool the building down. So those are some of the ways that we're working with people that own the buildings to prevent that side. The other thing, as you mentioned also in your introduction, Jan, is the groundwater levels. In this country, we have an ongoing discussion with the agriculture section, because agriculture uses very heavy machinery for which they like dry ground, otherwise the machinery sinks into the mud. And they like a low groundwater level. To keep buildings, especially buildings that are built on wooden poles, intact, but also other buildings, their foundations in some parts of the Netherlands are slowly starting to creep down. They want the groundwater level to be somewhat higher. So those discussions are going at a great rate, and the City Council is looking at making sure that the foundations of buildings are protected, so that we want a level that protects the buildings. And the other thing we're doing is, when there's a big downpour, of course, if it suddenly covers the ground, we have a problem. So we want it to slowly sink into the ground, which means, and we're asking everybody not to have hard surfaces. Anywhere where you possibly can, have gravel, have something with sand, even small bricks around the bricks, the water can sink into the ground, helps to slow down when there's a big downpour. So these are some of the varying things we're doing in The Hague.
Very interesting. I already hear you saying, I think that's one of the key ideas, that the city has a certain responsibility to make a city a thriving economy and a thriving community, but they cannot do it all alone. If it comes to the built environment is not in possession of the city council, and the cooperation is very important. So I think this conversation that we will have now with real estate investors, which are important stakeholders when it comes to the built environment, is I think very interesting and important. I think, Martijn, do you think it would be a good idea to ask Wiebke Klem, is a policy advisor for the City of The Hague, to dive a little bit deeper into the situation of the City of The Hague, to give us some insight in also with a little maps, etc., to give us a little insight in what's happening.
Yeah,
Shall I think so. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think.
Thank you, City Councillor. We would like to come back to you when we discuss the issues that you mentioned with the investors that we will invite into the conversation later on. Thank you. Wiebke, I think you have some slides for us. Maybe you can put them on and start your small presentation on the situation in The Hague.
I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, I see it.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So following up on the introduction by Lisbeth van Tongeren, I would like to just let you know a little bit more where we are in detail in the process. And what has been said already is that we focus on, regarding climate change adaptation, we focus on sea level rise. Here I have two images of the examples that Lisbeth was referring to. Here you can see the boulevard in Scheveningen and also the sand engine that is a defense of our coastal area. And the three topics that we are going to focus more in the coming years refer to the inner city. Those are extremes in precipitation, urban heat, and drought. And we are going to we're going to work on those issues regarding climate change adaptation, not as a separate topic, but we're going to link it as much as possible with other urban challenges. Those are urban developments and transformations, redesign of public spaces, but also the challenge of making the city energy neutral. So we link energy transition with the climate adaptation topic. In that way, we want to combine tasks and challenges within the city. In that way, we do not only want to make the city more climate and future-proof, but we also want to improve the living environment in our city. So it is very important to also improve the quality of life, to have attractive outdoor urban spaces where people can recreate, walk, meet other people, so that it also improves the health situation, social cohesion in our city. And this is very important in the current COVID-19 time. And it also has been mentioned already, we want to integrate the improvement in terms of climate adaptation into the thinking of all people involved in city making. So it's not only the city itself that can act on that topic, but we also need to do it together with the parties, with the inhabitants within the city. And this is what we are working on. So we're working on the topic for a couple of years already. And in the last years, we worked on knowledge development. We have a couple of pilot projects in the city that I'm going to show you within a few slides. But we also worked on investigating the problematic issues in terms of extreme weather events. For that, we developed klimaatadaptatie in Dutch. So it's a stress test site. You can look it up on the internet. And here we show for the 3 topics extreme situations. For example, for extreme precipitation, here you can see a map for the whole city of The Hague for heavy rainfall. That's 70 millimeter in 1 hour. This is very extreme rainfall moment, and it's only a simulation. I want to add that as well. So we, of course, need to look deeper into the situations, specific situations, and focus on what is the foundation, what is the constitution of the certain building to figure out what damage there will be. But this map helps us to get an overview of issues within the city, and it also helps us to get in talk with the city's inhabitants and other parties within the city. Another map is the heat map. Here we look at the criteria thermal comfort that shows for all the for the urban spaces, how a person that walks through the city will experience the temperature on a very hot summer day. And here you can see that the situation changes a lot between, or differs a lot between, a green park like the Souder Park with a lot of old trees, with a lot of shade and nice cool places, compared to other more open hardened surfaces where the situation is worse. And you can imagine that we want people to recreate, to be healthy and safe outside, but also to go shopping and meet. So in order, it's very important to have outdoor urban spaces that are comfortable also during extreme heat situations. And of course, there are more other people that are vulnerable, like elderly people. But it's also a term of having good indoor thermal comfort. And last but not least, we have the trough scenario. Also here we look into what is the situation for in the coming years to figure out where action is needed. So what we are working on right now, as I said already, we work on projects and pilots in the city. We are about to finish a new strategy for climate change adaptation. And this also includes climate change adaptation criteria for new developments, for transformation projects and redesign projects, so that developers also know which criteria they need to use when designing a new project. And also a roadmap is included in this. So this forms a good starting point for those developments. And of course, we are going to talk about the maps I just showed you with inhabitants and city partners. So we do that together with the city. We involve inhabitants and city partners. We have maps of a lot of good example projects, and we are very proud that a lot of people within the city show work on this as well. So we have nice schoolyards that are made climate adaptive with more green and blue spaces. We have housing corporations that improve their inner courtyards together with the inhabitants to make them more livable and more climate responsive. We have a museum that includes green roofs together with solar panels. And we also have the pool duct, which we're going to see later on in this meeting as well. So just a few examples how we can that show you how we improve the urban spaces. We get rid of tiles, 40,000 tiles in the Slachthuisplein, for example, and make it a green, attractive, nice outdoor space. We also improve the city to bring back surface water, so you can imagine that there's less that there are less problems with heavy rainfalls when the water can fall into the surface water already. And then we are very proud of an iconic project that we realized by the end of last year in Laak. There we redesigned a neighborhood park into a very nice green park with a lot of sport and play facilities. There's also a little garden and a urban farm included, and based on a European subsidy from the Nature Smart Cities project, we were able to include an urban water buffer, which is a new technology, a new system, which helps us to store rainwater in the deep underground locally, so that we can reuse it during drought and heat periods.
Wiebke, could you go one slide back, please? Because I think it's. I want to make the step to the conversation again.
Yeah.
If I look at this slide, it's also interesting to see the logos at the bottom. And when I think of this conversation, I ask myself, I don't see any real estate investors, but I can imagine that it would be very interesting for them as well to see these kinds of developments in the surroundings of their investments. So I just want to point it out that hey, there are no real estate investors involved in this project. Maybe they should be in the future. I want to address that, and to maybe we can take that remark later on in the conversation. Come back to it. Okay, you've shown some examples. I think we should go further now, because this is what the city of The Hague is doing. It's impressive, but it's also interesting to hear how real estate investors are working on the issue. And I would like to invite ASR Real Estate. So that is Elise van Herwaarden from ASR Real Estate to put up the camera, and also Stefan de Bie from Vesteda. Stefan, Wiebke, thank you very much for bringing us what The Hague is doing. I think we can use that very well. It's impressive. But now we will go to ASR for a start. Maybe, Elise, you can shortly explain what ASR is, ASR Real Estate.
Definitely. Thank you, Jan. And thank you, Lisbeth and Wiebke, for taking the time to listen to our stories also today. It was really interesting to hear your vision on climate adaptation in The Hague so far. So my name is Elise van Herwaarden. I'm a sustainability manager at ASR Real Estate. And ASR Real Estate is a daughter company of ASR, a big insurance company in the Netherlands. And we're an investment manager, real estate investment manager to be specific. And we manage investments in different types of real estate. And well, for the last years, coming up with a more sustainable built environment, but also taking our responsibility in working towards a climate neutral world has had a very high priority within the company, within the strategy of the company overall. And as Lisbeth well really clearly pointed out from my point of view, the whole climate crisis well will be a major issue for all of us. And what we also now know is that climate change is happening. So where initially we were mainly focusing on climate mitigation at ASR Real Estate, we're now also shifting our attention to climate adaptation, since we know that climate is changing, so we can better prepare for what is to come. And from that point of view, we started off with making an inventory of, well, actually where our buildings are and what is going to happen on those sites. And Jan, I'm not sure if you're going to share the slides again.
I have a slide here for you. This is, okay. I think, very impressive picture.
Well, Yeah, well, I can explain what we see because what we started doing is mapping the data we have of our buildings on a geographical underlayer in GIS, which you might know, a geographic information system, just to know where our assets are located. And what you immediately see is, of course, that there's clusters of assets at some locations, but in some places assets are very much spread over the country. So what we started doing next is seeing what climate change entails for our assets. And for that chapter, we loaded data from CAS, Climate Adaptation Services. They created a climate impact atlas, and through the climate impact atlas, they provided us with layers translating physical climate risks into geographical underlayers that can really easily be read just from the screen. And what we then did as a next step, which we're still working on a lot, is what you can see on the screen, and that's labeling the climate risks for our assets. So the specific image you see in front of you is a screenshot of The Hague, and the dots you see on the screen are our assets in The Hague. We have different types of real estate that we manage. So we have retail assets, we have dwellings, and we also have offices. And all those assets suffer, of course, from climate change to a certain extent. And what we're working on, and that you can see, and it's still in the concept phase, is, well, how extreme do these climate risks impact our real estate? So the first step is just to see what score our assets have as compared to other assets. And what the next steps will be, and what we will probably also hear from Stefan, is that we have to make a translation from the direct risks from climate change, physical impact, towards the actual impact that climate change factors have on the specific assets. So that depends on a lot of factors, on the specific location within the city, but also the type of building materials used and many other factors. So this is just the first step. And I think from our perspective, it would be extremely helpful to come up with a mutual understanding of how climate change impacts certain types of real estate. But also what I would like to call out for is to come up with a large-scale approach to this problem. And that's also why I think it's really great that we are talking to the municipality right now, and that we're uniting with a lot of investment managers so that we can come up with a vision, not on a building scale, but, well, more preferably on a neighborhood scale, or maybe even on the city scale. I think that would be the main tool to tackle climate adaptation.
Thank you very much for this short pitch. It's very clear. And Stefan, maybe you can give us some insight in how Versteda is working on this. Then we have had two investors telling a little bit more on how they cope with the issue. Can you introduce yourself and Versteda a little bit?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Jan. My name is Stefan B, Program Manager Sustainability at Versteda. And Versteda is a residential real estate owner, and we want to have insight in the different physical climate risks of our portfolio. And also, like ASR, together with Climate Adaptation Services, we looked into the different risks we are exposed to based on available national data. And based on those available data, we looked into, for example, the heavy rainfall by looking what the water levels are and where and when the rain showers occur of 70 millimeters in 2 hours. But also for the heat stress, we looked at the thermal comfort and the amount of warm nights per year. And based on these data, we made categorizations of no risks to a high risk. And when there is a high risk, we want to take action on to mitigate those risks. And for example, in The Hague, we've had a complex where the water couldn't be handled by the sewage systems, which caused flooding within the homes. And together, this had a damage of over 100,000 euros. But by creating bypasses in the rainwater drainages and installing gravel pits, the problems were solved. And these measures only cost a few €100 per dwelling. So it was a good investment for our side. But also in The Hague, we started with a renovation at Westkapellelaan by renovating a complex by energy label G to energy label B. And by adding isolation to the homes will get more exposed to heat stress. And with this problem, we installed heat recovery systems that normally keep the heat out during winters. But we installed a sensor in it that can also be reversed. So now in the summer, it will keep the cool air out, which have a positive effect on the heat stress of those dwellings. This year will be making an overview of all the actions we, but also other stakeholders can make on the physical climate risk. And we want to also integrate it in our physical risk scores of a complex, so we can have a real good action on those physical climate risks by ourselves, but also with the other stakeholders surrounding a complex.
Okay, I think the system in the homes is just turned around. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Martijn, it keeps the cold out in winter and keeps the heat out in summer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Clear. Okay, very interesting. And so you have some kind of categorization. No problem, little problem, a big problem. I think ASR is also aiming towards that direction. Do you think there's a common understanding on how to address the thresholds within this is a problem, this is not a problem? Is it? Do you have a? Did you figure it out all by yourself, or how to address that?
We did not figure it out by ourselves. We had the help from Climate Adaptation Services, same as Elise had with ASR. And to my understanding, we look all at the same data. I guess when there is a island effect, everyone knows there is a heat island effect. But how it affects your product, your real estate, or some otherwise, that can be interpreted by a company itself. But we all would understand that the heat island effect is occurring, and there shouldn't be a question.
Yeah, definitely. And it also highly depends on the type of real estate that you're talking about. So, for example, an inhabitant of a dwelling that lives within a city center, of course, weighs a climate risk such as heat differently than a store owner who opens his doors and uses the air conditioning to welcome the clients. So all those factors really request a very tailor-made approach. Are you muted, Jan?
Okay, sorry, thank you. Martijn, I think you can oversee also international data suppliers. I think the data in the Netherlands is quite detailed and maybe top-notch. Could you say that?
Yeah, I think so. If I hear these stories about Climate Adaptation Services, I think we're quite a good firm. We have piloted more pan-European with Climate Delta, part of MSCI, an index provider. The positive part is that they can calculate also how much it would cost and how much and how large the climate risk is. But if I look at those examples that ASR Versteda is presenting, that's much more detailed than if you look more high level. So I think they have really interesting and detailed examples. Our experience with Climate Delta is that it is much too broad and too general. And also stating, part of the Netherlands is below sea level. So you've got an issue with the rising sea level. I think, we know, and we have been tackling that already for 400 years, also without electricity. So I think we can manage that. So that's the next step to take. And I think Versteda and ASR have done a really good job in at least assessing those risks.
Yes, okay. I would like to introduce a little map that we have made with all the investors that are now connected in this call. We have invited all the investors to come up with their locations of their assets, and we've plotted them on a map just to find out where there is. We are all in the same space and all in the same city, and we are facing the same challenges. And at first we did this in Google Maps, but then we switched to a GIS system. I have to switch to the next map. So this is the same map, and the dots represent the different assets from different real estate owners. And if we zoom in a little, we already see that in the center, this is the city center, there is a concentration of assets from real estate investors, and we see here in the center there is quite a concentration. I think it's interesting to confront those locations also with these maps from Climate Adaptation Services. They are available freely in the Netherlands, and it's open data, so that's great. And we do this now on 3 issues, and I would like to invite all participants to put on their camera so we can have a real conversation on those issues, and maybe we can bring in some more examples that are relevant on those issues on climate adaptation. We start with heat stress. If we take the center of The Hague again, and we put up the percentage of hardened surface, it was already mentioned that it's quite a challenge to remove the tiles, and it's happening already. But in the center there is of course high density, which also results in a high percentage of hardened surface. The same center here now as a percentage of green. You see here in the center there's not that much green, and if we show the urban heat island effect, which is also giving an impression, then we see that we are facing a problem that we share, which also raises the question: can we solve that problem together? I think maybe around the topic of urban heat island and heat stress. Is there anyone who has an idea how to tackle that? I think in the city center, CBRE has some assets that maybe still have some possibilities to become more greener. Henny van Voerkom, CBRE, you're in the call, I think.
Yes, I am. Yes, correct.
Could you tell something about the assets in the city center of The Hague and the possibilities that you see for doing something maybe about heat stress?
Yes, at the moment we are thinking about an idea to replace a large bicycle store, what's now in the public area, to bring it in some indoor spaces in the basements, so we can store more bicycles in our basements, and make room free in the public area to make it green and to catch up the rainwater, to avoid drought and make some progress to hit the stress situation at that city center location.
Okay, and I think there was also a parking in the center at the Bijenkorf store.
Yeah, in that same area we have also a parking place, and we are thinking of redeveloping that to a more green area, but also with some residential places with green roofs and solar panel locations. So yes, that are examples where we busy with at this time.
Okay, I'm putting up some pictures of the parking area, which is extremely heat stress sensitive, you might say. I'm already getting hot looking at the picture.
Yeah. Well, I was there also last summer when it was kind of 40 degrees, and you kind of had a Italian Spanish feeling when you were standing on the asphalt. Yeah. There, and that's the tricky, that's the difficult part, because we manage several retail properties in the city center of The Hague, and the retailers sometimes also say, yeah, we just put on the airco, and if we insulate too much, because of course they use a lot of energy for their lighting and for their heating and cooling. If we insulate it too much, because of all our lighting, we will have a heat problem inside. So that's difficult because those buildings are old. Bijenkorf is 100 years old. We also manage the former V&D. We're going to redevelop that. want to make it much greener. There's also really a roof on top of it with a lot of tiles. It used to be a car parking also on top of the V&D. We're redeveloping that because the Hudson Bay, of course, also went bankrupt and is now empty. And yeah, you saw this car park behind the back of the private car park. Well, there are ambitions of the city to create much more space for bikers, which is nice, cyclists, and we want to work into that, and we hope in a couple of years' time to make a really nice and green residential building here. So that's really good what Henny said and showed.
The next topic is heavy rainfall, stormy weather. We've also put that map under the assets of our connected real estate investors. And this also gives insight in where the problem might be. And I think there's also interesting solutions already. Bernardo, can you tell us something about what's happened at the World Trade Center, because that's quite special.
Yes, thank you, Jan. I'm Bernardo Koorberg, Head of Sustainability and Innovation at Bouwinvest Real Estate Investors. Like the other parties already mentioned, climate change is a hot topic for us. We are looking at this topic from a risk perspective, from one side, because we are a future-oriented investor with a long-term perspective on the city. But we also look at it from an impact side. And that's where we can find a lot of cooperation and common goals within the goals the City of The Hague also already has. Because we also want that our buildings are attractive and in a safe and an environmental friendly area. So that's where we meet the common goals with the city council as well. And that's something that has happened within the World Trade Center in The Hague, which we are the owner of, our Dutch office fund. And a couple of years ago, there was a renovation going on in this office building. We were renovating the common areas of the World Trade Center, and we always take an holistic approach on sustainability. So on every investment we do in the city, when it is a renovation, we think, how can we improve the sustainability of this building? And there was a request from the tenants. They want more attractive public space. So what we did is we combined those two. We make an attractive building for our tenants, for the people that are visiting the building. So what we did is we also made a so-called rooftop garden that has a buffering retention for heavy rainfall in it. So
we have a little video on that. Huh? I think we should start that in and have a look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
We zijn hier in de binnentuin van het WTC. Ik ben Marja Meuleman van bureau Meuleman. En wij hebben de natuur het kantorengebied binnengehaald. Een aantal jaar geleden zijn we met de eigenaren van het gebouw rond de tafel gaan zitten. En wilden graag iets maken wat er mooi uitzag, maar ook wat functioneel is en duurzaam. En we zijn uitgekomen op het polderdaktuin. Inheemse beplanting, heel bekend in Nederland. En duurzaam, omdat we hier regenwater opvangen. Dat gebruiken de planten. Dat verdampt op natuurlijke wijze en wordt weer in het systeem teruggebracht. Wij kunnen grote regenbuien voorspellen. Zorgen dat die bak leeg genoeg is om op piekmomenten regenwater op te vangen en daarmee het riool te ontlasten. Jarenlang hebben we gekeken naar zielige dennen die het niet echt wilden doen. Rozen die steeds doodgingen. Want het is een vochtig, schaduwrijk mini-klimaatje. Dus wij hebben besloten planten te gebruiken die van dit klimaat houden. En het resultaat is duidelijk. De wilgen doen het fantastisch. Het riet doet het goed. En er is zelfs een dotterbloem waar we erg trots op zijn. De natuur doet zijn werk, dat blijkt. Want na een half jaar zagen we kleine kikkervisjes, we zagen insecten. Dat was natuurlijk een fantastisch moment. En dat is echt iets waar we met z'n allen enorm trots op zijn. Dat we gezamenlijk zo'n mooi idee hebben gehad en het op deze manier hebben kunnen uitwerken. We zijn hier in een binnenstedelijk gebied met veel verharding. Je ziet hier dat het ons is gelukt om groen binnen te brengen, water. En dat het een plek is geworden waar mensen graag zijn.
Okay, that's a beautiful example of how to deal with water in a building. Do you think this can be copied and pasted to other buildings as well?
Yeah, sure. This is one example of how you can improve the problem on a building level. But as we do in The Hague, we work in the Green Business Club. That is an association where we work together with the city government, but also the other asset owners in the area. And of course, a lot of those issues you have to solve at a city level or an area level. We can't, as an asset owner, we can do it on ourselves. We have to work together in trying to find those solutions. So if you have those solutions and the hotspots in an area on top of your mind, then you can cooperate and bring those things to the table and bring in the solutions.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to go to the third issue that is at hand, and the third issue is a drought. We've already heard something about it, and I think if there's a long-term drought, then the groundwater levels will sink. This is a map of the groundwater levels with the assets projected on it, and this is a map that indicates the risk on pile rot, pole rot. So because if maybe Sibiri can explain that, because you have had this problem very explicitly in the Venenstraat, I think. Can you tell something about that?
Yes, I can tell something about that. Yeah, we have problems with the facade and the structure of the building. At the right-hand side of the building, the foundation was sucked down for more than half a meter, and we have to stabilize the building with new concrete pillars and lift the building a little bit. So yeah, there was a serious problem, what cost a lot of money, and that's only because of the lowering the water level in the ground. And so yeah, it's really important that we stabilize that level.
Yeah, yeah. And Stefan de Bie, I think you mentioned that you do something about infiltration of rainwater in the ground. Do you think if you pick up this challenge together, that you might help out each other in raising the groundwater in dry times?
I guess this can be a solution. The Hague has areas where they have problems with increasing water levels, and they have problems with declining water levels. So on the one hand, where you have heavy rain showers or rain showers at a moment, you can put that in the ground and help perhaps the locations where we have problems with declining water levels. But Lisbeth, you have something to add on that?
Yes, because our groundwater levels are not just the result of climate change. They're very much the result of policy choices. The Netherlands has been organized to get water out of the country as fast as possible. So we put enormous amounts of good possible drinking water out to sea as fast as we can. And we don't have that many surrounding farmers directly next to The Hague, but the whole system is organized that way. So apart from looking at individual properties and looking at the city council, we're also busy lobbying to the central government with loads of towns that have this foundation rot when their foundations are wooden. And also all the green areas. Trees in the whole of Europe are at extreme risk, but also our trees. So partly this is a climate adaptation issue, but also partly it is a policy choice. So it helps if people talk about it wherever they are, that this isn't just something from the Green Left, that it's from the Green Lefties, but this is something that on an insurance and on a risk base, and also property owners, it started to affect them on a fairly serious level. So we need to join together to make this point to our government as well, I think. But I'm a politician, so that's why I have a political message.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think it's clear that it's something that needs the collaboration of more stakeholders than just the city and some investors. It's not something that can be dealt with at very local scale. I think that's clear. Okay, if we've seen a little bit now on 3 topics. We've heard something about different investors doing different solutions for the problem. We didn't touch Dennis from Stoop. Are you in the house? You also have a problem with sinking and the existence of cracks in walls in monuments. Can you tell a little bit about that? Then we have had that subject as well.
I'm Dennis from NSI, and we are one of the office investors in the Netherlands for the long term also. And we have one of the most beautiful building in Den Haag, I think. It calls the Rode Olifant, the formal headquarters of Esso in 1900. And with the drought of 2018, we have a lot of cracks in the construction, in the facade, and also in the foundation. And that is a big issue for us for the next time, for the couple of years, because when we have another drought season, we need to make measurements to restore the construction facilities. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've had different issues now and different problems. I think when we have been sharing data on our locations. I think it might be useful when we start sharing information on our solution strategies as well. And I would like to pose the question, maybe also to Deputy Mayor Liesbeth van Tongeren, how to organize some kind of shared strategy in tackling this problem. Could you elaborate on that? Is it possible to share a vision to make? Maybe I would like to hear your thoughts on how to tackle that.
That's a very broad question, and politicians love to talk, but I'm not quite sure whether you're saying worldwide. We're trying that with the Paris Climate Agreement that also has a section on climate adaptation. Within Europe, of course, Timmermans, the Euro Commissioner, is busy with getting a Green Deal. And the economic problems we're currently facing because of Corona have made our government decide we need a big growth investment fund. So those
I'm especially looking for the possible strategy for the city of The Hague in maybe making for certain areas certain visions or strategies to connect stakeholders in chasing the same solution, working on the same project.
Okay, we've recently the city councillors, the local parliament, has agreed with a plan I've made on. It's called the city energy plan, and in that we look at 10 specific areas to begin with, and we're looking at the built environment. So we want everybody, schools, sport clubs, real estate owners, private home owners, but also the social housing cooperatives to look at the area together. I think this is what you're talking about, Jan?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I also talked about this with Elise from ASR. She also had some thoughts on this. Maybe Elise, can I give you the mic?
Yes, thank you, Jan. Yeah, that's also what we've been talking about, Jan, indeed. Well, actually uniting as investment managers, real estate investment managers, seeing where our assets are located, and then also from that point of view, collaborating with, for example, the municipality of The Hague as a basis to, well, start a shared vision, shared neighborhood vision, maybe coming up with a neighborhood design, neighborhood policy strategy. I think we should really think and unite on that skill rather than only focusing on the skill we're used to working on. So we can, of course, come up with building interventions, we can come up with green roofs, and that can perfectly fit into the strategy of the city of The Hague. But I think it's much more efficient if we think in networks and systems and in shared strategies, so that we can all collaborate and that we can all make interventions on the skills we're specialized in the most efficient way. So that I think it would be really nice if that could be an outcome of this, this meeting, maybe eventually.
I think that's an excellent proposal, and I'd very much like to invite you to the real or the virtual town hall to see how we can work together as city council and as real estate investors to make steps forward, because we work both on preventing further climate change and in climate adaptation. And on both sides, we need everybody that owns buildings or has activities in the city. So it'd be very welcome if you're organized and there are certain topics, representatives that we can have discussions with and see if we can make our intentions and put them on paper and become real working partners. So I very, very much welcome. Yeah, thank you very much, Elise.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Lisbeth.
Yes, and with this, I think interesting invitation of the deputy mayor, I think we come to a conclusion of this conversation. I thank you all for joining this conversation. I think it was very interesting to share some data with each other, to have a look at the maps together, and to share some ideas and solutions. But in the end, I think finding common ground and shared strategies is a very interesting one, and I think we will certainly follow up on this adventure with the city of The Hague. As a Dutch Green Building Council, I would also like to indicate that we will be working on a framework for climate adaptive buildings, because I think everybody is also still very much looking for solutions on their own and looking for how to tackle this issue. I think we are only still scratching the surface of the climate adaptation challenge, and as a Dutch Green Building Council, we would like to follow up on that also in the coming months. Feel free to follow us on that through our website, dgbc.nl. For now, I would like to thank everyone involved in this call. I would like to thank the viewers, and have a nice summit for the rest of those days. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks a lot. Thanks
Thank
for
you very
hosting.
much.
Bye-bye.